inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Being a kingdom-driven entrepreneur is not the same thing as being a Christian who happens to be a business owner. A kingdom-driven entrepreneur is motivated by seeing an increase of the kingdom of God through the work they do in business, and they are propelled forward by operating from the truth of Matthew 6:33. They seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, knowing that all things will be added. So that is why we are here, and I'm so glad that you have joined us today. I want to share a little bit with you about our guest today. Her name is Carrie-Ann Jasper Yearty, and she's the Vice President of People and Culture of Jasper Ventures. It's a family-owned business that provides natural gas processing solutions to their clients while also providing value to their employees and communities in a way that serves the kingdom of God. Now, Carrie-Ann shares today how she learned how to embrace working with God, partnering with him to create a kingdom culture within the company and provide leadership, love, and direction to their employees as together they solve problems in the oil and gas industry. It's an excellent conversation, so listen in, take some notes, and enjoy this conversation with Carrie-Ann Jasper Yearty. Carrie-Ann Jasper Yearty, how are you?
Good morning, Shay. Doing great this morning. Thank you.
Well, it's good. This is our second time sitting down to have a chat. And so I'm delighted to have you here on the podcast. And this is going to be a fun chat. So thanks for joining me.
You bet. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So let's start here because I've never had anyone from your business type on this podcast for 9 years. So Jasper Ventures, start by telling us, what is Jasper Ventures?
Yeah, so we are a company that services the midstream oil and gas industry. We are a family-owned business. It was never intended to be that way, but our dad in 1992 started a company that he called EPC, Engineering, Procurement, and Construction, and it was a really creative name. It was basically what they did. They did engineering, procurement, and construction. So our dad is a chemical engineer. And so he ran that company for about 25 years and really just needed some help when his business partner retired. I joined the company in December of 2011. So I've been here a little over 10 years. And over the last few years, we've been working on succession planning, became Jasper Ventures, wanted to honor him and his name. He's got a great reputation in our industry. We have a very small little niche market where we build cryogenic gas processing facilities for clients. So it's this tiny little niche, requires a lot of engineering. And we've just really been working over the last few years to just honor him. He still works here, honor his legacy that he's created. And serve our industry well, serve our clients well, but also really to focus on how we serve our employees and our communities well.
Yeah, super good. And so you said this wasn't intentionally a family-owned business. So were you the first person in the family outside of your father to be in the business? And then after that, there was kind of a cascade of your siblings or something? What happened?
Yes, absolutely. So funny enough, to go way back into 92 when he started the company, I was in college.
Okay.
And so he needed some clerical help. So while I was in college, I did work for him. When I finished college, my sister was finishing high school. She worked for him.
Oh, wow.
And then there was one point in time that my brother worked from a procurement perspective for our dad, but all when we were much younger and really just kind of to jump in and help him. So really the fun began when I joined the company in December of 2011. Dad's an engineer, not a business guy. I have a business background, 27 years in human resources. And really felt like I could help him on the business side of things.
Yeah.
But a few years into it, I realized like my HR background is a little limiting. I'd gone back and gotten my MBA, but still, I'm not a great numbers person. I'm not passionate about accounting and finance.
Right.
And there were just some things that I was beginning to see as we were beginning to grow as a company. And the amazing thing is the Lord did gift my brother. in accounting and finance. He's actually an accounting major, and was working for another family business doing there what I really needed someone to do here. And so after some phone calls and some long discussions and a lot of prayer with him and his wife, and they were loving where they were living, but they realized that God was calling them to the business as well. And so he joined I guess it was like February of 2016.
Okay.
And then as we continued to grow and we went through the transition of changing the name and changing our website, and literally everything changed but our address and our phone number, I think.
Right.
Everything changed. Our logos changed, our name changed, leadership began to change as my brother transitioned into a president role. We also hired our brother-in-law, who was married to our sister. So there's three of us.
Nice.
And so now all three family units are involved. And our brother-in-law came from a background, they were in Austin, and he came from a background from marketing, education. He was working for Dell. And we really felt like he had the skills that we were lacking as we wanted to start scaling and trying to figure out processes and how to market better. How to have better technology, and then he joined the company in 2017. So
wow.
It is now officially, we haven't been in the process of, buying our dad out and really kind of working on that succession plan of us running the company in a day-to-day way.
Wow, that's super cool. So one of the reasons why I invited you onto this podcast is because when you and I met, I really loved what you were sharing about the culture, like your focus on kingdom culture, kind of within the company, but also beyond the company.
Yes.
And I love that, because one of the things we focus on here is, this whole thing around alignment with kingdom culture and how it starts with us as an individual. Then it can extend from a leadership perspective, that can extend into creating that culture within your company environment with your employees and those whose lives you touch within the company. But then also beyond that to the clients that you're serving. And then beyond that to the communities in which you serve that aren't, necessarily involved with your company. And then you guys take it even further because you have this thing called Beyond Business, which I want to talk about, which is then saying, hey, there's some lessons we've learned here about, creating kingdom culture and service and all of those things in the community. We're happy to share this and create community around that. So I want to dig into kind of what that looks like for you guys, how that even came about, what you're learning, some of those challenges, like all the good stuff. So maybe start, Carrie-Ann, by sharing the story behind why you all do what you do. And then share a little bit about what that looks like really practically for kingdom culture expressed in your company.
Yeah. So given my background in human resources, I feel like the Lord has equipped me well to handle the people issues that come up in a company. I mean, that's really where my background has been. And so my title here, which is super fun, is VP of People and Culture. And so I have responsibility for human resources. So your normal human resources function. Right. I have responsibility for what you call Beyond Business, which I'll tell you a little bit about. And then I also have responsibility for communications, because we just feel like that's a really important part of what we do is consistently communicating with our employees. And so my role is really to provide leadership, vision, and direction for this team. And we quite a while back set our mission for our team to be building people for God's purpose, because we do accept the fact that these are not our people, they are God's people, and He has a plan for them that may not necessarily be our plan for them. And so we really like to take advantage of the season that we have them here at Jasper Ventures, just to love and care well for them. And whether that is a season of 30 years, or that is a season of 3 months, depending on, what's going on in our world, in our industry, in our employees' lives, we feel like our workplace is our mission field. And so we probably, I think it was, Brent had just come here like 2016. We had gone and visited this amazing company in Lubbock, Texas called Beat and Bow Homes.
Yes.
And we really just caught this vision of, what could it really look like if when our dad founded this company, he dedicated it to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so we know where we know what our foundation is.
Yes.
And we were being very generous with our employees, very generous with our community, but there were still a lot of things we weren't being very intentional about. And so we felt like when we saw what was going on at Beaton Bow Homes, we felt like we could really start to more boldly live out our faith at work in a way that could intrigue others, I guess, for fascinate others.
Yes.
And so our dad he's a chemical engineer. And so I won't make all the chemical engineering jokes, but super introverted, super private, and really of a generation where your faith is a very private thing. Right. And we feel like faith is absolutely a personal relationship, right? You have a personal relationship with the Lord, but not necessarily meant to be a private thing. And so how do you boldly do that in the workplace? Because being an HR person, I was always told things like you leave your work, you leave your home life at home. You don't bring that into work. And we don't talk about religion and we don't talk about God at work. And there's just things you can't do. And so it's all these kind of restrictions. And I think going to Beaton Bow really was very freeing and seeing that this is a company that does this so well. And if they can do that with their employees and their community, why can't we do that with our employees in our community? And so we really I always say we just caught this vision that just immediately brought to just almost a standstill some things we were doing in our company, building a building, for example, just to say, okay, hang on. What in everything that we do, every decision that we make, whether it's building a building or having a meeting or celebrating something, how can we do all of that in a way that honors God and brings him into every single aspect of our business, not just generosity, right? Not just giving to Christian nonprofits. It's so much bigger than that.
Yes.
And then as we begin to learn things, how from a community perspective, can we also share what we're learning with other businesses that we know if we're struggling with how to do this well, other businesses want to do it as well.
Yes.
But they just don't know how to get started. And so really just pouring into our own employees first and our own culture, but then beginning to share our journey. I mean, we continually share our journey with others to try to encourage and inspire, but also because it feels so overwhelming at first when you start to think like, how do I do this? And I remember having this conversation with Holly Beaton Bow, like, okay, I don't even know where to start because I'm a doer. Like you get me, like I'm not a visionary. I have moments of vision, but not a visionary, right? I'm very much tell me what to do. I will go do it. I will make it happen. It will be amazing, but I'm not usually visionary.
Right.
And so I'm going to Holly and I'm like, I got to get back. I got to do this and that. And she's like, what? And I said,
slow down.
And she said, you just need to abide. And so
she
that
said,
was
wait. She said, you just need to abide.
I
just want to make sure that they heard what you said.
Yeah. So Shay, just based on our first conversation, you may struggle with abiding as well, but I'm like, wait a minute, where's my thesaurus or my dictionary? Because that word I don't think is in my vocabulary or my language, because if I'm a doer, I'm definitely not an abider, right? Like abiding and praying and seeking the Lord's wisdom in this. And it's really funny. And I can't remember where I read this. It may have been in Alan Fadling's book, An Unhurried Leader, but he talks about how we should enter into what God is already doing.
Yes.
And kind of my vision of that is myself. This is a vision of myself, which is not right? And my vision is I'm running really fast and I'm telling God to hurry up and catch me.
Yes.
Like,
that was me before Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. Yes.
Come on, God, you're holding me back here. Hurry up, that kind of thing. And so
bless my plans, Lord.
It was really interesting to change my pace to the Lord's pace.
Yes.
And realize the work that can be done. And so all of those things that were spinning in my mind about, that we just can't do that, or that's never going to happen, or we can never be that. The Lord gave us fresh and new ideas.
Yes.
Hey, Beaton Bow does it this way, but this is what I want you to do. And
you got a unique blueprint for Jasper Ventures.
Yes.
Inspired by the goodness of what Beaton Bow is doing.
Absolutely. And I think the amazing thing about that is that, God is, and Beat and Bow had said this and it didn't really hit me, but they had said, God is not a what happens and works well here probably isn't what he has for you. And so you've got to figure that out. And the only way you're going to figure that out is to abide and pray.
That's it.
And to seek him first,
yes.
to seek his kingdom first.
Yes.
So that was a really beautiful thing. And then, for us, once we really caught that vision, spent a good amount of time abiding and praying, that's when the Lord led us into Beyond Business. And I say led us in, even the name Beyond Business, we had hired someone as an executive assistant who my brother and I at that time, Brent and I, we just really felt like the Lord was preparing her for that next role. We want you to come on board. We want to start, we need you to just kind of help us get something organized as an executive, from an executive team perspective. But really, this is what we foresee for you, right?
Yes.
This is the role we feel like we have for you. But there was a lot of other things you need to learn. And so for us, that was really at the point that we really, which I think was one of the most, they were all important, right? We had to catch the vision, we had to abide and pray, but we really had to fully commit. This is not something Beyond Business, we realize, is not something that you can just sort of do. You're either all in or you're not in at all, because it's a huge spiritual commitment, because you're going to be pouring spiritually into this program. It's a commitment to our leadership team. When we began to face the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, we had to lay off a large percentage of our workforce.
Yeah.
And we did not lay anyone off from our Beyond Business team. And so really only two of our teams. We only had one other team that wasn't affected at all by the first round of our layoffs. Every team was affected by the second round, still, except for Beyond Business. And
for clarity's sake, with the Beyond Business team, they have kind of a dual focus. This is around the culture here in Jasper Ventures, as well as the work we're doing outside of Jasper Ventures and service to others. They're doing both of those things.
Yes, absolutely. And so, from a leadership perspective, we had to be able to say to our employees, yes, your job as a welder is important and your job as an engineer is important. But we had to lay engineers and welders off. But we are not touching this Beyond Business team, because we felt more than ever, from just, you think about all the mental health and just all the spiritual warfare and just all the fear and anxiety that was taking place during the pandemic. We just felt like, in some sense, we just needed to double down. Our Beyond Business team needed to be even more intentional and more involved in encouraging our workforce, the ones that were left, the ones that were remaining, in their faith and their, in all their whole life and just their journey. And then, so that's, once again, you've got a huge financial commitment there, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're paying for something while you really don't have any paying work. But we knew the Lord was going to provide for that. We knew that the Lord was going to take care of that, because it was his plan in the first place for Beyond Business to even exist.
Yes.
I mentioned even the name Beyond Business. We had no idea what we were going to call this. We'd heard marketplace ministry and kingdom at work and, all these different terms. And we had been praying about it, myself and my Beyond Business manager now. We were sitting in my office, and I distinctly remember the moment, and I'd said, let's just pray about, what does the Lord even want us to call this? What direction should we head? And we're sitting there in my office, and I have it written down, and I'm like, does it sound weird? And is that really from the Lord? Am I just making stuff up? And so I just said, here's what the Lord's telling me. And she goes, oh my gosh. And she turned her notepad around, and she had written the same exact thing.
I love it.
So
confirmation immediately.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, so now we have a name, we have done all the steps, we've committed to this. And then you have to take action. You have to take that first step. And so I think that's where, when you're saying Beyond Business, kingdom culture, that's really where the two really connect. I say that Beyond Business is really our way. It's a ministry, but it's our way of helping create a culture and a work environment where people feel loved and cared for, which allows us the opportunity to share why we do that the way we do it, and also to help our employees engage in that. So
can you give an example about what that looks like? So the difference between before Beyond Business existed, the way you might have engaged with staff, but now because of Beyond Business, now it looks like this. Like, what does that look like?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Cool.
We're an engineering company, so we have we're highly male dominated. So we're probably about 97% men. We also have a ton of just very introverted people, right? These are designers, they're engineers. And so, we got a lot of pushback about, men don't really need this stuff. Like, men don't need the warm and fuzzy. They just want to come to work. They just want to get paid. And they just want to go home to their families and have a beer. Like,
put their heads down.
Yeah, like it's this. I mean, it sounds great, but I don't know. So we just said, just let us try, right? Let's try some things. And I think one of the first big things that we did, we created this monthly, not mandatory. Nothing we do is mandatory, right? Mm-hmm. We have people of all faiths, all walks of life, all beliefs. They know why we're here and they know our kingdom purpose. But we always say what we do and how we do it may not be your reasoning, but we want you to know where our heart is.
Yes.
And you can come alongside that or you cannot. We're not a Christian company, right? A company cannot be Christian.
Right.
You can be Christian. A company cannot.
Right.
The company is not going to go to heaven. It's not going to have a relationship with the Lord. But they know from the time they go to our website or the time that they interview with us to the time they onboard with us, where our faith stands. So we're very that's one way we're just very vocal about that. But this monthly meeting, this Refuel and Refocus, we do this in both White House and in our Troop office. White House is our corporate office, professionals, engineers, accounting, human resources, that kind of thing, project management. Troop is more of our blue collar, our welders, our pipe fitters, coatings department, warehouse. So we implemented this in both places. It just took us longer to get into Troop because the leadership there was really like, these guys, I don't want this. But we offer.
What do you call it? Refuel and refocus? Is that what you said?
Refuel and refocus.
Okay.
And we do this to give them, it's 1 hour a month. We pay them to come, or they can go sit in their work area and work, but we pay them to come. We feed them breakfast. We celebrate different things. We celebrate birthdays there. We celebrate service anniversaries, but we always bring in some type of speaker that is going to deliver a message of faith. Either it's going to be an employee that tells their own personal testimony. It's going to be a pastor that just shares something that's on their heart. Could be a counselor, could be a nonprofit leader, like a Christian nonprofit. And really what we're trying to do is just help really tell stories, right? Stories are important. That's probably why you do the podcast. So people can kind of learn from those things.
That's right.
And so basically when we implemented this in our Troop office, we just said, let us try it. If it doesn't work, if you're losing productivity, if you're not able to meet your deadlines, then we won't do it anymore. But we probably have between the two, we probably have about 85 to 90% participation from our employees.
That's huge.
It really is. And they come month after month. It's a great time to connect with other people. We almost always have a fun game. Our cultural engagement specialist is this super fun, creative, just really innovative person. And so we typically have some type of game or raffle. And so I think that's, part of what we do. And you were asking, like, what did it look like before and what did it look like after? After, it just looked very ho-hum. Like a meeting would be a meeting. Like if we did quarterly meetings, it would be like, the executive team standing up front and like, this is where our projects are.
Right. Just the facts.
Where we are financially. This is what our engineering team is working on. I mean, I literally would watch people sleep through those meetings.
Right.
And so I said,
there's a huge
atmosphere. I said to the team, I said, hey, what would you think if Beyond Business started doing the quarterly town hall meeting?
Yes. And
of course, the guy that was doing it was like, I would love for somebody else. And so now it's like there's music playing when everybody comes in. We feed them. It was really fun. Back in March, we celebrated our 30-year anniversary. And so in March of 1992 is when this company was founded. Well, for anybody that lived during that time, they would remember Saturday Night Live and Wayne and Garth, right?
Yes.
So some of your listeners may have to go Google that, because some of our employees here, they're like, in their 20s, were like, who? So Melissa and I, my Beyond Business Manager and I, we dressed up as Wayne and Garth. And we came in full Wayne and Garth. I mean, we had watched videos. And we're not I mean, she was way better at Garth than I was at Wayne. Like, she totally killed the role. But we came in with our drumsticks and our guitars and had Bohemian Rhapsody playing. And we had asked our employees to come in their 90s attire.
Oh,
that
that's
is
fun.
so different than a ho-hum, right? And so we're praying during that meeting. We're trying not to be too blasphemous, because, Wayne and Garth, I'm like, there are certain things I'm like, no, we can't do that part of Wayne and Garth. We're going to do the cleaner parts of Wayne and Garth.
Yes.
But having a lot of fun with it. Of course, my dad is dying laughing, Mr. Serious Engineer.
It's atmosphere. It's like, it's atmosphere shifting and atmosphere creating what you're doing.
It is. And really, I would tell you that, if people are watching this and they're thinking like, what really changed the way we looked at moments is a book called The Power of Moments.
Okay.
By Chip and Dan Heath. And we read that book, and it just kind of opened up this idea of, they use this term in there, and I wish I'd looked it up before the podcast, but it talks about being unreasonable, right? I think so often in life, especially if you're an engineer, and I'm that way. I am very reasonable. I'm very detailed. I'm an HR person, policy, compliance, regulation, rule following. I'm all those things.
Yes.
But when I read this, and it was like, beware of being reasonable in everything that you do. Like, there's just times when you have to step out and be unreasonable.
Yes.
And so those meetings are kind of unreasonable. We spend more money than we should, and we put a lot of time and energy into it. And we're taking 120 people and we're paying them to come to this meeting.
Yes.
And we're having raffles, and we're doing polls, like, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? And like, this time they had, like, we did glasses and Lay's, because they were coming to the beach, and we had Oreo blizzards, and we sprayed them with water guns to keep them cool because it was so hot outside.
Right.
I mean, that's unreasonable. And
yes,
our people love it.
Yeah, that's good. I want to go back to something you said earlier that kind of stuck out to me, and I want to go down that thread. You had mentioned how when you were starting to kind of make this shift, it was like, let me slow down and think about, like, before we buy a building, let me think about, how could we, before we just say we're going to buy this building or do this building or whatever, like, how could we use this building for the glory of God? I want to go back to that and continue that thread. Okay. So I assume, tell me if I'm wrong, but I assume that on the other side of that process of seeking, like, okay, this is what it would look like to use this building, like, for the glory of God. And this is how this could help us in this culture area, that you guys came up with some ideas on what that looked like. And you actually did do the building. You did do the building, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to know what's going on with the building. Like, what did God show you in the midst of that? And what have you been experiencing?
Yeah. So we ended up completely scrapping the building ideas that we had.
Okay.
We bought this old metal building. It's like an old church, believe it or not.
Oh,
and
okay.
we just kind of decided we were just going to kind of build a couple of buildings next to it that kind of looked like it. And honestly, if that plan had happened, it probably would have looked a little bit like I think like after a natural disaster and they just put up all these like temporary buildings. I almost think that it's like what it would have felt like. Right. What we ended up building, and you can kind of see behind me, we are in at the end of a residential neighborhood, at the end of a residential street. We have about, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 10 acres. We've kind of continued to buy acreage around us. And we built the most beautiful building in our little town back here. And we did that because we felt like if we wanted to honor God well and honor our employees well, we wanted a place where they could really be proud of to come to work every day, a place that was beautiful, that was welcoming, that was warm, which means the people have to be as well, right? We have a hospitality specialist that sits at our front desk that makes sure every day the UPS guy comes in, he gets a snack and a bottle of water, probably. Any visitors we have, if we have new hires, she knows their name. She has a bag waiting for them. She makes sure there's coffee made. She makes sure there's copy paper in the copy machine. The lights are turned on and the stamp machine is, fully got postage in it. I mean, all of those little details it takes to run an office, so that when we come in, we can just do our jobs. And so this is like her home. And so our office feels like, for our office, it's Sue. It feels like Sue's home, and it's lovely.
Yes. Where she has the gift of hospitality.
Yes, the gift of hospitality. We have these amazing areas where we can collaborate. We have these beautiful office spaces where we can meet with one another. And part of what we built, which was the craziest part of it, is we built an event center. So
you built an event center.
We built an event center because we needed a place to meet with our employees, right? Christmas parties, quarterly meetings. We were meeting in the middle of our warehouse, and we were just kind of trying to do different things as we grew.
How many employees, by the way, are you guys? I forgot.
Right now, we're right at 200.
Okay.
So we were over 400 at the pandemic, went down to about 120, and we're back up to about 200.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we also wanted to be able to share, like, if we wanted to do a Beyond Business event, we needed a place to have that.
Yes.
And so it's for our use, but it's also for our community's use. And so nonprofits use it. We've had churches use it. We've just had other people in the community use it. And so we also have this beautiful event center. So this, we were talking about real estate before our call.
Yes, we were.
Before the podcast. This was not a good real estate investment. We are in.
This was an unreasonable thing.
This is very unreasonable. We are in a residential area. I mean, nobody will ever come back here and be like, "Oh, I will pay big money for that building." Like, that was not the purpose. And it was really just to honor God and honor our employees, and really to honor our community as well, because we really feel like we built a place where people can come, and so where they can come and they can celebrate together, they can learn together, they can be encouraged together, whatever the purpose of that meeting space is used for. Like, we feel like it's a beautiful space for people to come to and to gather in.
Yeah, that's so good. If I remember correctly, when we first met, you shared a little bit about some of the some of the collaborative things, because you have this event center and because you guys have a heart for community outreach. You also have been putting people together. I mean, like government. Did we have this conversation? Like government people, local church pastors and all that. Talk about that, because I feel like you created also an atmosphere for kingdom collaboration in the midst of your community. So tell us about that too.
Yeah, you bet. So I think that with what we do to try to share our journey and share Beyond Business with the community. Actually, I want to say last year, but it was actually this year. It was this January. Really coming out of COVID, we'd had some big plans during COVID that just didn't happen because it was just harder to gather people. We did what we called a Beyond Business Summit in January of this year. We just wanted to kick the year off right. We wanted to invite, like you said, we typically have business owners, but you may also have a judge that leads a team of people in his office, or you may have a city mayor that leads people, or you might have a nonprofit leader that leads people, or a pastor, right, that leads a team in the church and then pastors the church. And so there's a lot of leadership looks different in a lot of different ways. And I think that what we offer through Beyond Business is how to integrate your faith in your work, like how to do that well. And so we had a Beyond Business Summit in January. We probably had about I want to say 100 to 120 people from all over the community. And we had several speakers. I was one of them. So we spoke about the Great Resignation and what that looks like and why that's happening, and how we as believers can kind of weather that. Yeah. We also had a great speaker that just spoke about just the different ways that you can live out your faith at work. And then I actually spoke on kingdom culture, because that's what I feel like it's what I'm very passionate about. And I feel like it's what I'm equipped to talk about.
Yes.
Those other guys are, I even jokingly said, like, those other guys are doctors and they study this stuff, but I really do live it. And so I felt a little bit, I was like, oh, 2 doctors and I'm the third speaker. I'm not a doctor, but I do have 20 something years of experience.
Yes, and you carry the heart for it and the experience in it. And so
and so we were able to share. And I think that, we were able to share some very practical things, because I feel like one of the best things I get to do in my role, and I think my team would agree with this, is we get to create and talk about kingdom culture.
Yes.
And we do that. And that's what I was able to do that day, just thinking about, kingdom culture. It comes from the Lord, right? It comes from him working through us.
Yes.
And we are able to do his work and impact others.
Yes.
And so I think that when we realize, and this is something that's taken a long time for me to realize in HR. I wish I'd figured this out, 25 years ago in my 27-year career, that people are the only eternal thing. Right. We can build a gas plant that's going to rust and decay. We can build a building that's going to fall down and it's going to age. But people are the only eternal thing. And we have to put them first. And good. For me, I'm a very task-oriented person. And so I want to, I've got my little checklist and I want to get my pen. I want to check everything off. But if our business is truly our mission field and our people are truly our purpose and we're building them for God's purpose, then there are times these holy interruptions, I guess you would say, these holy interruptions when people, hopefully not today because I'm in the middle of trying to talk to you. I've got my door closed, but my door will be closed and somebody will kind of knock and kind of wave. And I'm like, sure, come in and or they just walk in because the door's open, right? Because I don't typically have it closed. And they're like, hey, do you have a minute? And I'm looking at my list and I'm thinking, I don't.
However,
yes, I do, because the Lord is telling me you're more important than anything that is on my time.
That's good.
And so
that's
if you
really
create
good.
That culture with your managers and with your leadership, our goal in this culture is to connect people to one another, because we know we are better in community. We know we are better in relationship with other people, but it's also to connect them to Jesus, right?
Yeah, so that's so good.
It's all about relationship. It's very relational. But we're hoping that by connecting with us, they will see the difference in us and they will want to learn more about that. So it's not like we walk around with our Bibles. Right. We're not preaching down the halls. Right. So it's not private. And it is bold, but not in a way that we never want to exclude. We always want to be inclusive, regardless of where you're at in your life. I mean, we've had people go to jail while they're working here, and we've loved them through that. We've had people that have definitely been living in sin, and it's very apparent in their lives, and we love them through that. Yes. So wherever they're at, people are messy. And people are hard, but God calls us to love him first and to love others. And so kingdom culture is really about that. It's really about treating people the way that God would treat them, loving them the way that he would, and seeing them the way that the Lord sees them. So good. And I think what happens with a kingdom culture like that is it really changes people. I think us living out the gospel in our workplace has a lasting impact that God can use far beyond what we see. I think that it also, I think I said this before, it really fascinates people. Yes. I will say that people use the word like it's unique, it's precious, it's surprising. It's the way we treat them is intriguing. They want to know more. Yes. Right. Yes. And so that's really kind of that kingdom culture feel of, okay, is there something in this for you? Like, right. Are you guys really for real? Like, why are you trying to get me to do something? Like, what is this? So I've got one more question. It's kind of connected to that thought. You were talking about this whole thing around these unreasonable, did you call them unreasonable moments? Is that what you call them? Or unreasonable decisions? Power of moments calls this like beware reason, like let go of reason. Quit being reasonable, right? So I'm curious for you personally, Carrie-Ann. So now that you have walked out, knowing what your personality type tends towards, and also you very intentionally making these unreasonable decisions, just seeing the goodness of what's been coming out of that. Do you now at this point, are you still challenged by any unreasonable decisions, or are these really easy for you to make at this time? Because you're like, no, I already have the evidence God's shown us this time and time again. This is now easy, or is it still a challenge? I don't think it ever, I think sin is hard. and flesh is hard and it's hard to overcome. And so I think even as much as the Lord provides and as much as we see the fruit, it's still hard. I mean, I would say especially in 2020. We laid off a ton of people.
Right.
It's hard. Like when you're loving your people really well and you have to let them go, you really have to turn that over to the Lord. Like they're not our people. Like the Lord has a plan for them. It is obviously not to be here right now.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of those people come back and it's so good to see them back. Like, so I think that especially when things get tight financially, right? Even though the Lord did provide and he kept us afloat, we did not go into debt. Like we did not have to close our doors. I think there's still that
little bit of that tension.
Maybe we shouldn't be doing this right now, or maybe we shouldn't be spending this money right now, or maybe we shouldn't be taking that on right now. So I think there's always a tension between being reasonable and being unreasonable.
Yes. I think this is healthy.
It is. I mean, it's just hard. And I think that the great thing is having a team of people. When you think about beyond business and you think about what makes it work. I mean, obviously it has to be God-centered, right? It has to be accepted. Not accepted isn't the right word. It has to be fully committed to by leadership. So when you want to do something unreasonable, you have a team of people. You're not making those decisions by yourself. So you have
it's not in isolation.
Team, right. We have a leadership team at the top of our company where there's wisdom and there's discernment. And so we know when we need to be a little more unreasonable and when we need to be more reasonable. And I would say last November, so November of 2021, it had just not been a great year. And we had PPP money, so that helped us a lot. There were a couple of other things that we were treading water, right? We were keeping our head above water, and we had this it was definitely an unreasonable idea that we just wanted to show immense gratitude to our employees in the month of November. Like it's leading up to Thanksgiving. And so the 4 Mondays leading up to Thanksgiving, we did Gratitude Monday. So the first Monday we did, I won't remember the exact order. I remember we did some pecans and it just had a note on it, kind of corny, but it said, "We're nuts about you. Thanks for everything you do." We did something else. I can't remember what the other one was. I think we might have, I know what it was. We had barbecue delivered. Stanley's Barbecue. If you ever go to Tyler, Stanley's is the best barbecue in town. Probably also the most expensive, so not reasonable. So we had barbecue delivered to both locations. We went out and talked to the employees kind of while they were going through the serving line, just thanked them for everything they did. And it's been a tough year, but you've stuck with us and we're just so appreciative. So you get to the third Monday and we bit the bullet and we said, you know what? These people haven't had raises since 2019. Like we cut them off in 2020. We were just about to put them in. People took pay cut. Like we worked reduced hours almost the entire year between like June of 2020 and July of 2021. We weren't sharing profits because we didn't have any, but so people were struggling. Yes. And so we gave everybody that was there their pay increases they would have had over the last 3 years.
Wow.
So 2019, 2020, 2021. Yes. And we said, in December, you're going to see this in your paycheck. And they were just completely floored, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then in December, even though we didn't have profits, we normally do profit sharing every quarter. Right. But the last Monday of November, we said, you know what? We have a little bit of extra money from the PPP. We know it's not profits. We're going to call it profits. We're going to call it profits and we're going to share it. And so every single person in December got a profit sharing check, and they weren't small. Like it wasn't like they got $20. Right. Like we made it where it was going to be impactful. And when I say both of those, but really the profit sharing, there were tears, grown men crying. Like, I didn't know how I was going to do Christmas this year. Wow. It's going to help my family so much. Like, I can't believe you're doing this. Like, so that's unreasonable. Right. Yes. But it's so impactful. And we were able to say, like, you know what? The Lord provided this. The Lord provided this to us, and we want to share this with you. That's just such a powerful message.
It is.
It's a powerful culture building, right? Because when it comes to culture, leadership presence and leadership connection with your workforce is critical.
Yes.
It's probably, it might be the most important piece of it, because if there's a disconnect between leadership and the employees, or leadership isn't impacting the culture, isn't connecting in the culture and engaging in the culture, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be really tough to overcome that. And so it gave us an opportunity every Monday of that month. And people are still talking about it.
Oh, wow. That's good. I'm glad I asked that. Super good. Carrie-Ann, this has been really rich. I appreciate you sharing all this goodness. There's probably people that are like, oh, they actually share this type of information with companies and help them. I want to know more about that beyond business stuff. Like, how do people who are listening connect further with what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, most of what we do is here locally in the Tyler, Texas area, but we have a lot of businesses around here that participate in that. You can find us at jasperventuresinc.com /Beyond Business, or you can just go to our Jasper Ventures Inc. website and click on the Beyond Business link. So there's a lot of information there. You can get onto a contact list. So we try to send out what we think are valuable communications to help people live out their faith at work in different ways. We've done videos, we've done stories, we'll just share articles that we run across. And we have done some virtual things as well. We'll try to do some virtual things. But we'd love to have anybody that wants to come to Tyler, Texas, to one of our Beyond Business Summits. And we actually already have one scheduled. If I say this out loud, then we have to have it, right? I think it's January 12th of 2023. We started planning yesterday.
Okay.
So
very good.
It takes about 6 months to put one of these together, but we will, we would love, now that I realize COVID is still a thing, but we would love to, we can pack out 280 or so people in our Oak Crossing Event Center. We would love to pack that out with 280 people that want to find ways that they can creatively live out their faith at work and love others well in the workplace.
So fun. Thanks, Carrie-Ann. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Shay. I really appreciate you as well. Thanks for all you're doing for the kingdom.
I truly enjoyed this conversation with Carrie-Ann Jasper Yearty. I'm loving these conversations about what it looks like to create kingdom culture and companies that have, 100, 200, 300, employees. It's just so rich just knowing what's possible with God. So I really enjoyed this chat. And now I have with me Mr. Bynes, my dear husband, and our CEO with me to share with us his takeaways. So take it away, Mr. Bynes.
Take it away, she says. Okay.
Take it away with the takeaways.
Take it away with the takeaways. So my first takeaway then is we have to change our pace to the Lord's pace.
Yeah, so good. So core message in the Grace Over Grind message is around moving at the pace of God's grace, whatever that pace may be. So that's good. Yeah, I love that she shared that.
Yep. The second takeaway I have here is when building a culture, you have to be willing to do the things that go beyond reason. And so she said it differently, but I like the way that going beyond reason sounds, right? And this was in relation to the power of moments.
Yeah, that's so good. Because it's like in the natural, things can seem unreasonable and the natural things can seem crazy, but in reality, they're not. They're things that would be wise. There's things that are reasonable because we're doing them, in faith in Christ, led and empowered by the Holy Spirit. And so that's good. I like that.
And my third point here is in order to have a kingdom culture, you have to be relational opposed to transactional.
Yes.
And in my parentheses, I have people are important because they are eternal. And so I loved when she said that, and I wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, that was really good. Just kind of like shifting the perspective from just a building or just, objects and things and all of those things that are good, right? But looking at how is this impacting people? Yeah, I love that that was a shift in decision and kind of the focus on decision making around things. So yeah, really, really good. Is that all your takeaways?
That's all my takeaways. And just a little bit more on that. Like when I think about this whole eternal part, it's like God put us on the earth not to do something, quote unquote. It's to become something or become someone, right? And so we have to pay attention to the relations that we have here on earth in whatever way that looks, right? Because those are the only things that are truly eternal.
Yeah. Super good. Love that. All right. So those are excellent takeaways. You all who are listening, hope you enjoy this episode as well. And listen, if you're listening to this podcast and you've really been inspired by the conversations we're having on what it's like to do business in partnership with God, I want you to know, in case you didn't know, that here in the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Movement, we have a lot of resources available to you to help you walk this out, to help you walk out what I call the wild, crazy, and amazing adventure with God, you know, helping you to really experience his best and have a greater kingdom impact through the work that you're doing in the marketplace. So we want to invite you to get further connected, and you can do that at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com/connect. Mr. Bynes, is there anything that you want to share before we hop off today?
No, I think I've said enough.
Okay, very good. Well, all of you, we will look forward to talking to you more next week on the next episode of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.